Missing two. Two.
Pat and Larry.
Yeah. They have to brace it.
Took Larry's bait.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, we have almost 6:30. This is the meeting of the Wabash City Plan Commission. It's December the 4th, 2024. I am John Burnsworth, Plan Commission President. And can we call the roll, please?
Bill Burrows,
Here.
Larry Hoover, absent. Mary Kramer,
Here?
John Burnsworth,
Here.
Carl Ryder,
Here.
Jason Sless,
Here.
Chad Maple,
Here.
Kathleen's absent, Sharon Yowie. Here.
Okay. Old business, minutes from the October 2nd, 2024 meeting. Everyone have a chance to review those.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes pass. New business. The estate of Theodore Dill for the property located at 1464 Grand Street, Wabash. Former lot number 108, whose address was 1420 Grand Street. That is the easternmost lot. It will be 50 by 140 feet for the purpose to divide the lot into two separate parcels for the settlement of the estate.
I need to say three things here. First off, I've looked at the file. It's properly before you. Secondly, since we do not have a full plan commission here, anything that comes before the plan commission to either be approved or disapproved has to receive a majority vote of the entire membership. So that means you have to convince 5 people. And so since we're short 2, that means you can only lose 2 people. So whenever we have a situation like that, we always give the parties that have petitions to come before us the opportunity to continue this matter to next month in the hope that there would be a complete plan commission. If you do decide to continue, you will not be required to republish or send out any notices if you had to do so, because anybody who was notified of this meeting and was concerned about it should have been present at this meeting. So before we hear your particular case, you need to indicate whether you want to go forward or continue it, and it's entirely up to you.
I was the one, I'm Anita Goyeski. I filed the petition and I would like to go ahead and have it heard today if we may.
Okay.
The other thing I need to inform the board of is that the estate that is involved here is an estate where I am involved also. as the attorney for the personal representative. So you need to be aware of that.
Okay. Do you want to stand and
Sure, certainly.
talk to us why you want to,
Sure, sure.
what we're doing?
No problem. My name is Anita Glayeski. I represent David Dill, who is a descendant of Theodore Dill, that's who the property is named, whose name it's in. Mr. Dill died, and part of that estate requires, in order for us to settle that lot, what we're asking for is that lot to be divided off from the other lots so that we can sell it and finish the estate, so that that piece of property can be sold and the estate be settled in state court.
So you will probably want to sell the lot to the east.
I'm not sure if it's east or not. Is it east?
Yeah,
Yes.
to the east.
No more than I
So
do.
you're just splitting this in half.
Just splitting it in half, yes.
And Anita, you're the attorney representing?
I am the attorney, not representing the estate, but I represent a person who is receiving that piece of property in.
Has an interest in the
Interest in
estate.
the estate.
Okay.
And
Yes.
even, the only reason why we're doing it is to settle the estate, so.
Uh,
Okay,
So why is this coming to us?
okay.
Explain that.
Okay. Under our zoning ordinance, this is known as a subdivision. And the Plan Commission is the body that determines whether something is properly a subdivision. Our subdivision control ordinance, however, has a clause that says that you can ask to be excluded from all of the requirements of a subdivision if you can show that the reasons for requiring a formal subdivision with a plat and layout of all the streets and easements and all that, if you can show that's not necessary, you don't have to do that. I give an example. I every time this comes up before us, there are two different examples that I like to give. One is to say that if you remember where the old high school, junior high school was on the corner of Hill Street and Cass, that great big lot there. If somebody wanted to divide it in half, there's no real point in asking them to do a plat and all of that because the streets are already there, the sewer, the storm water, the easements for power and all of that, it's already there. The stuff that you would put in a subdivision plat is already there. It doesn't have to be built. On the other hand, many years ago, we had somebody come in asking for an exclusion for 6 lots over on the south side on Bentley Street. And quite frankly, it was approved, but it should have been a subdivision because Bentley Street, although it has the name street, is really nothing more than an alley. It's not wide enough to be a street. It's not paved. Secondly, in building those houses, they disrupted the drainage that covered a relatively large area. And so that should have been a subdivision. Now, what is being asked by Anita here is that at one time, there were 3 lots that got combined into 1 lot. All she wants to do is undo that and split them in half so there'll be 2 lots instead of what used to be 3 and then became 1.
My first question, excuse me, would be, this is in heavy industry, so they're probably limited on what can be built there.
It
That's residential there, isn't it? Or is it all considered heavy industry?
The area is zoned heavy industrial. The use of that, of all 3 of those lots has been residential. And it is a non-conforming use. That is, it is a permitted use because it was residential before it got zoned heavy industrial.
The next question would be splitting this lot.
Mm-hmm.
Would that remaining lot be big enough to build a house on
And that's,
at the square footage?
it's a little confusing because it's 50, then 45,
And
and
then
50.
50, yeah. If it's split in half, yes, it's going to be big enough to build on. I don't think that's what the use is. I don't know. I suspect based on what's happened in that area, that the most likely person interested in buying it is the industrial use that's located there.
So the one lot that's going to be split will be the 50 by 140, and then this will be the 95 by 140?
I was a little unclear if they divide it in half,
See,
Right.
if you divide it in half, there's not an issue. But,
right.
But I
Yeah.
didn't, so I didn't,
And
So
I'm
the-
not sure if they're dividing it in half. I think before it was the easternmost lot was 50 feet wide plus 20 feet off of this lot, which would make it 70 feet wide, which is not quite half, but it would be, both lots would be big enough at that point, I believe, to
legal
build a
to build
house
if
on.
someone- Okay. That was my own concern,
yeah.
that we were limiting the
Yeah.
use if we split off another lot. Okay. Thank you.
I don't think the intention is to have a house built.
Okay.
It is not.
Okay. Any more questions? What's the board's pleasure?
Ask if there's anybody here to
Oh, I'm sorry.
oppose it.
Is anybody in the audience here to oppose this property split? Okay,
I'll make a motion to accept the split as requested.
I will second.
have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Bill Burrows,
Yes.
Mary Kramer,
Yes?
John Brunswick.
Aye.
Carl Ryder,
Yes.
Jason Sluss,
Yes.
Chad Maple,
Yes.
Sharon Ewing. Yes.
Okay, all in favor? It's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Wabash City Council for Redevelopment Commission request to the City Plan Commission, resolution number 3, to amend the zoning map of the city of Wabash to change the southern portion of parcel 85-14-300-008.000-007. Hereafter, the parcel from suburban residential S1 to light industry in order to develop it for much needed expansion of the city's North Industrial Park.
And I have reviewed the file, and the advertising and notices to property owners was made. It appears to be properly before you.
You're up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tennille Zartman, but I'm here representing the Redevelopment Commission today. Who has the petition before you?
Can you speak up a little?
Yes, sorry. Tennille Zartman here representing the Redevelopment Commission for the city of Wabash. So before you, you should have a map of the portion that we're looking to rezone that John just did the number of, so I won't repeat that. But wanted to give you a little history of that. I know a few of you have been along for the progress, but earlier this year, we conducted a strategic sites initiative with the state of Indiana for sites around Wabash County that could potentially serve as industrial land. And this was one of the properties that was identified as being property that we can grow our industrial base. And just to give you a fact, because I was working on my end of year reports today, Of our over 130 leads this year, 28% of them we could not submit for because we did not have contiguous acreage to meet those leads. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So we've studied this site, and the reason that it's attractive is it has on-site utilities. It's dual served with 2 different electrical providers. And we were actually awarded a grant from Wabash Valley Power to do all the due diligence on this acreage as well. So we've already completed all the ULTA surveys, geotechs, wetland delineations, all the reports that come back and say this would be great land to develop. Sorry, what was it?
They still can't hear you.
No,
You're driving around and we can't hear you.
yes,
Yeah,
no.
we're here too.
The reason the site is ideal is because it's dual served with 2 different power providers. So if a company were to go there, we could either use Heartland REC Power or Duke Energy Power. Because right now, a lot of our companies that are looking to locate to Wabash County need power, and that's one of the main things that is either the driver or the end of a project lead for us right now. So we did all the due diligence, everything came back well on those reports. We then submitted the sites for a Duke Site Readiness Award, and we did receive that award and designation, which basically gives Duke's Energy stamp of approval. And in that process, we had to do what we do on our daily basis for leads. We did a mock RFP to submit the land and all the due diligence. We hosted a site selector. So in my world, that's the individuals that help companies locate to Wabash County. So we hosted a site selector from Texas. And I think, John, you were at that site selection, Duke Site Readiness. I think Jeff might have been there. I think maybe Bill was there too. But I wanted to say who was there because the site selector said it was the best site visit they'd ever had. And so I genuinely think he was speaking truthfully there. So just in the last week, we received the State Site Readiness Award as well for this site. So we're Site Gold, which basically means that it's ready to go and that we would be able to help put an employer there quickly. For the public's sake, or just as a reminder, so we are proposing light industry, which is the adjacent property is light industry.
What is light industry?
What is light industry?
Yeah.
Perfect, yes. So it means that it has to be clear and quiet to protect the neighbors. It cannot have any pollutants or nuisances. It has to adhere to setbacks from developments. There's no outdoor storage permitted. Building height is restricted. There's requirements of screens and buffers for either residential or commercial adjacent to it. And also there's lighting requirements that the lights can't be shining at residential. And then also this land would be added to the Wedcore Business Park, so it even has more restrictive covenants in addition to just the.
Can you show us on a regular size map? Is that one over there? Because we got the 3x4 inch. Is that the map?
This one?
Yeah, but is that a full display there or that's not?
No,
That's
that's,
city council map.
This is the council jurisdiction.
So
it's this right here,
you're talking about that land.
right here with the highlights. Yeah, so it's 5 acres we determined in the southern portion, and it's 5 acres of the 232 acre parcel that would be rezoned. So the rest is already light industrial. So just to give you a little more what the restrictive covenants entail as well, just so you know that too. So it requires landscape coverings, loading docks can't face residential.
Ingress.
Trash needs to be screened, signage is regulated, building coverings are regulated, so that has to look attractive with either brick masonry or stone. So that there are those protective, restrictive covenants as well for this property or for the area.
Tennille, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's
No,
just,
fine.
so of the portion, the 155 acres that was recently purchased, you're only wanting to rezone 5 acres?
Yeah, the rest is already light industry.
Okay.
And so 232 acres were purchased. Of that, only about you have the map there. That
Yeah,
red
so,
portion
and I
is the
see that.
only one that.
All of that
So
is
that-
light
And
industry.
it's already zoned light
It's
industry.
already, has
Okay.
been
All the
for
light
quite
blue
some
light
time.
industrial.
Oh, and- okay.
So that's right where Living Essentials is. That's where Bulldog Battery has a plant right there.
Living Essentials isn't there.
Living Essentials is right across the street from it.
We're there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
east, it's
In
not,
that-
okay.
In that.
Yeah,
area.
but in that property north of the zoning requested,
When was that done? The rest of the acreage there.
The
To
zone
light, to light industry. When was that changed?
before my
Because it all
time,
used to be residential along there.
before my time, it's been light industry because it's a industrial park. It's called the Wed Core Industrial Park.
Right, but we didn't know it went all the way down to 115.
yeah, because that property was just sold in September, but it had been,
But it had been,
it had already been
Yeah, it was
previously?
already zoned.
Yes.
Okay,
So we didn't have to rezone any of that, which is why we identified it as a good property for future development, since it was already zoned appropriately.
So that means, it's a field, it's no longer going to be used for farmland. It's zoned for industrial.
Yeah, it currently is, yes,
And you
but that
don't-
permits, you can still do ag and industrial as well. But it's currently industrial for the land north of it, or all the surrounding land.
Do you know what type of industries they're looking to come in there?
Yes, so it'd have to be light industry, so it can't be any heavy, you can't have any pollution.
has to be all enclosed.
All enclosed, no outdoor storage, no, you can't have any dust or smoke or pollutants or vibrations or noise, none of that is allowed there. And then for us, so I also am the economic development organization for the county, so we have a whole list of target industries that fit well with our mix and employment mix, so. We actually had a site visit today, looking at that property, which is a light manufacturer, so, since we haven't had any more than, since Ford Meter Box has purchased the last large chunk of land in the city, we haven't been able to submit for projects. So
So
this would allow us
if
to do
they
that.
do more entrances there, will they come into off on Far Pike or on 115?
If they did more entrances, there'd probably be one off of 115 if needed, but not yet. We haven't done the site plans yet. It'd be based on what the companies needed.
But once it's
My-
zoned, it's too late.
It's all along 100 South, that's why.
Oh, for
You're saying
that.
it's gonna be
Yeah, all the frontage.
15?
It would make any entrances.
In the back of
Yeah.
the. back of
Right
their
now,
factory?
we would use the existing entrance, which is Westport Avenue. So that's already an industrial for truck traffic right now. And if needed, we'd have to work with the state to get State Road 115.
That's what we were wondering, if there'd be more trucks down that way.
Yeah, out to 115.
So your building's going along 115.
I guess I still don't
We don't have
understand,
building layout.
because,
Or
so this is
south,
the
I
5 acres or
Well, this
whatever,
is what
the
you
one,
got
two,
marked out.
except-
except for the house.
Not
No,
that.
that's not
There's
where
a
that
house
is.
there.
That's just the only land that's not.
But so what, continuous
So that's not
acres,
necessarily where a building would
That's
go.
I guess I still don't
No,
understand why
not
they need that.
No,
And why is that zoned differently than this?
30 feet,
Because it was sold as an entire
30 feet
parcel.
setbacks
Not
from
Mm,
the front. There's different setbacks depending
The
on
zoning
how
goes
it's
back a
laid
long
out.
ways.
You know,
I don't know
they've
how
done a
far
study
back,
on
but
the
it goes back a
watershed
long ways.
and
Um,
draining the water away from that, because
The,
right now we have a problem with water settling in the field.
They
at the
left
corner.
this,
Yes, and
suburban
actually, the building department here
because
has to approve the drainage.
there were houses
plan,
over
so-
here.
So any development that would
But-
occur there would have to do their
And
own
because
waste or their own drainage water.
our
plan.
industrial park
And so we'd have to
stopped
do
there
revision.
Mhm.
But
and
would they
we,
be considered
went
of the
out
property
northeast.
and to them if they
I
bring
don't
it
think
on
we
their
anticipated
property and
that
it
we
goes
would
onto
spell
somebody
everything
else's
out
property.
northeast.
Yeah, they have to
But
have full
this-
engineering studies, so they
these
would not
haven't been
allow
built
that.
upon
They
yet,
would not
have
allow
they?
to have their water run across the other properties.
No,
Because
this
they
is also
were
what we
included
purchased.
in
We
our
purchased those two.
watershed coming through. The Helms, when they owned
The
that
problem
majority
with
of that
this-
property,
Yeah.
it came on.
problem with
Agriculture's
this
a little
is
different.
That's
There
why
is a
my
buried
field floods.
natural gas line, a
Yeah, for any-
substantial,
Industrial
natural gas
development, they
line
would have to submit
that
a
goes
full
through
drainage
there.
plan.
so it's very
Work with the
difficult
building
to
department,
build
work with the city
on that
engineer.
property.
And
Who owns
we've
this
kind of
property
mapped
right
it out
here?
where they would have to have
Who
so many
owns that?
retention
Jeff
ponds.
Dahl?
If it would
Yeah.
affect the
That's so-
properties
And his
adjacent to
family
it,
sold
does
it
the
to,
city or that
Mark, I
industrial
knew
park
Mark really
pay for it?
well.
and
I
his
knew
family
Jeff
sold it
People that own
to
the land have to pay
Haldeman,
for it?
and Haldeman sold it to the
Development
city.
would pay for the
So
drainage.
HK
And his family
And-
tried to sell it to the city back in 2000.
So
Yeah, so that would
HKH
be
is
the
not.
The
value.
concern is when it comes to
The
their
reason,
money
okay, this is
that
my big problem,
most people don't
and I do
have.
have a big problem.
I think so.
That's the problem
This
we
is what
have with the
that's,
drainage.
that's what
is
that
that
council.
Okay, if we could,
And this is
we have too many
what-
conversations going on.
No, sorry.
We'll get our time.
This is
Okay.
the,
Let's
this is
do-
the sale price of that property.
What we normally do is have you stand and state your name and address for the record. And that way we know who's talking
That
and
I have no
we
issue
can
with that.
connect the conversations later on the tape with who's speaking.
Okay, so this is the
Yeah.
ground.
Okay.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, one, we want to be business friendly, but we're also community friendly. So every project that would go into
Howard
this
bought
land
that in
have to submit a
21.
plan and be approved.
He's selling it for, he's paid 1.3.
For drainage, community and
I'm all for
lighting and
But
we even
I
review
have no
their
issue with that.
landscape.
I mean,
plans to
and
make sure
I'm
that
sure that
covers.
it's probably appraised appropriately.
And on a personal note, I live less than 1,300 feet from the property as well, so
And it has been bought.
I'm also.
Yeah, well,
invested,
and
but-
I understand that. It's already bought, and I'm just wondering how many.
Hey, I have
knew
a
about that
question,
purchase.
just for historical purpose of this. The area that's, light industry currently, that doesn't include the 5 acres that are in this proposal today.
Correct.
How was it excluded when this entire parcel of land was declared light industry?
Yeah, that
I was not around when they did the development or why that chunk was done, so I don't know if anyone's been around long enough to know why that was suburban one versus. I don't have that history. Sorry about
I
that.
think if people have questions, they should come up and identify themselves so they can be made of
They-
record.
Right. And John mentioned that.
Okay.
And I don't know either. I don't know, I somewhat suspect, but I do not know that it was zoned that way back when Wedcore was first developed, which would have been back in the, pardon? Early 90s, yes. And so my guess is it's been that way for 30, 40 years. I do not know why they left part of it suburban one. That I don't know.
The covenants that are currently on the Wedcore Industrial Park, which is already there, was in 95.
Okay.
And so this property that we just bought, though, had already been previously rezoned.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's been zoned light industrial for quite some time.
But never used as such.
Not used as such, but it was, the city had an opportunity to buy it back in somewhere around 2009, 2010. But the person who was selling it at the time wanted more than what it was appraised for and more than what the city could afford to pay. And so instead, the city bought all that land out near the drive-in and developed that into an industrial park. And quite frankly, the city thought they had plenty of ground, but our economic development people have been working so hard and so well that all of that ground is now spoken for. So that's why the city then decided to build or to purchase this farm ground, which was basically zoned industrial, to expand the industrial park out on Cass Street and Wedcore Avenue.
But this amount, it's got to be more than 5 acres because this property existing in between is 5 acres. So you're asking for rezoning, it's got to be more than 5, at least according to this map.
Yeah, and I can beacon GIS it just do the.
Well, and that's what I'm using right now, Tennille.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Helm owns that property in the middle, and that's 5 acres. So this is a lot more than 5 acres.
Correct.
Any more questions from the board?
So that's,
Okay, now I'll open up the floor.
I would love to talk.
You want me to move out of the way? They come
Yeah.
back?
Yeah.
That's all you have for me? That's all you
think
have? Okay. All right. I'm Dave Frischman. I reside 1143 South State Road 115. I lived there 33 years. So I've seen a lot of things happen out that way. And as this one gal said, we had a controversy back in 16, because this is actually the John Carr drain. And so all this land is like Asheville, North Carolina. It's all coming down into this basin. And so I know that Helms Farm, most of that land, have anybody, do you know that strip is? You guys been out there?
Yes.
Yep.
All that land drains into 100. And so when we get torrential rains, all that water comes across the road into my property and then over to Mrs. Lawrence's property. So it's been a problem for years. So that's why I was wondering, and I don't think you probably consulted the drainage board, but I think you should understand what's going to happen there. And so if you're going to put businesses in there, they're definitely going to have to adhere to some kind of a drainage, because it's going to affect our drainage. Maybe it'll help it, but it could affect the drainage. And so, and then I think the city would have to still pay that drainage tax, wouldn't it, Doug? Somebody's got to pay that drainage tax.
The
Well, the
properties,
county's going to get screwed on that deal.
okay, if there is a ditch assessment on that property, that will have to be
There
paid.
is, because I have 17 acres that's been affected by it. And I was supposed to pay $7,000 how many years ago? And didn't happen, but that's partly why. So I know the Schuler property, and so the other thing is, I'll move off of that, but if that's a what'd you say the buffer was? 5 acres, which that's not
It's way
true.
more. Yeah.
And so if you're gonna take that all the way 100, if you're like on that corner across from me, you're not gonna go out to 115 for a road. You have to come on 115. Excuse me, 100. And so why can't that be the buffer? You've got all this other land you just purchased for over $3 million. Can't you use this other land? I mean, that's not affecting anybody else. And so I'm asking, why now? You just bought this property, and now you gotta redevelop this 5 acres, which we know it's now more, to light industrial. How do we know you won't put solar panels in there? We don't know what's gonna go in there. I mean, I don't know if that's considered in light industrial, but I think it qualifies into that category from what I've researched. So we don't know what's gonna go in there, and I don't know how you're gonna come out. You're gonna have to go back north and go back out to 115 again on a road. So if you're gonna go along that strip, and you know where the strip is, you can see it. To me, that should be the buffer. Because everybody's gonna be affected. What if there's a road across from one of my neighbors, you're gonna have headlights coming into that road. You know there's gonna be heavy traffic. And 100 can't take the traffic. It's already beat up from Beecham Avenue back to 24. So you're gonna have to have these industries go out to 115, which I don't have a problem with that. But again, I think that should be a buffer, because I don't understand why you aren't looking at filling these other properties. So I think that's all I got, but I just want you to consider that carefully what you're doing. I know there's only a handful of us, but that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I address those concerns?
Sure.
So I did, so we don't have our plans finalized yet, but so far all the plans right now, that acreage that we want to rezone right now are detention ponds to help with that drainage issues. So all the engineers, every plan we have so far,
How are you gonna develop
Almost.
that? It's detention ponds.
well, it's so we can develop north of it.
Okay, so then you're not gonna put light industry in there, you're gonna put detention ponds.
No, okay, correct.
Why don't you say that?
Well, it's not, we haven't had the site.
The-
yet, but
the-
it can change.
The problem is that because at the moment, this is all one parcel, to put a detention pond for a light industrial use, we need to have it zoned light industrial. And that's why,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You did say that.
But is there a I'm Tammy Unger. I'm Joyce Lawrence's power of attorney. We grew up right on the corner there. And is there a guarantee that the retention ponds will go there and only retention ponds?
Can I address
let the mayor.
Mayor Long? City of Wabash has a stormwater ordinance that requires us to manage that drainage. That's why detention ponds will go there. I can guarantee you there will be detention ponds on site that will mitigate the flooding issues across 100 South when this is developed. It's going to improve it.
Will that, like we talked about earlier, because they have to pay the county ditch, we have to pay the county ditch fees. If it doesn't, they'll come back on all the residents there.
If it does. If it doesn't,
If they don't, if it doesn't solve the issue for the residents, because they're concerned about solving their drainage issues.
state of Indiana statutes do not allow you to discharge stormwater onto your neighboring properties. And we can't.
For years.
Well,
That,
as I said, we have a stormwater ordinance. This is in the city limits.
Now it is.
Now
It
it
wasn't
is.
before.
It was annexed before we purchased it into the city. So we have requirements that we have to follow. Just as we did in the Northeast Business Park that we created, and we put 2 detention ponds in there, which definitely benefited the city and Charlie.
Neil?
There were
Because
also,
it's capturing the water before it goes.
and there were also retention ponds built when we built Field of Dreams. There were
Right.
retention ponds there and in the woods that also took care of a lot of that. I mean, I can remember when we were growing up, Charlie Creek used to flood
You could too.
monthly. Yeah, and it hasn't since.
the,
And likewise, Parkview and their ponds have eliminated flooding farther south into the city. This will do the same thing.
Will the city maintain those detention, mow around them and keep them clean, or are they gonna?
That'll be the responsibility by ordinance of the property owners.
the city requires any, company that comes in to develop for their facility, they're required to sign an agreement that they will maintain, that, detention pond, that if they don't maintain it, the city will go in and do it and then charge them for it. The other thing is that our storm ordinance requires anytime you develop your property, the discharge of water off your property has to be less than what it was before. And the city has an engineer that we pay to make sure that all developments do in fact include enough detention or retention facilities to make any surface water discharge less than what it was before the property was developed.
And then I had another question about like lighting that could be put up. We live in the country because you want to be in the country and you don't want the lights and the city lights. It destroys everything, the view and everything. And so the whole area that you chose to live in is destroyed. I mean, for you, for the residents living there, I know we aren't very many that we've lived there all of our lives, and I eventually we'll have that back, but I grew up there, and it breaks my heart to see industrial coming out that far, even if it's light industrial.
I think Wabash definitely has a light pollution problem. And in the zoning boundary, we need to do more regulation for it. I live in the zoning boundary and it has infiltrated everywhere.
Yes.
Out on 24, out by the county line, there's is it Quality Coil? The lighting there you can see 5 miles away. And there definitely needs to be more. And perhaps this would be a chance that we could regulate and make some changes there.
And I guess we're asking that all be in place before anything's decided, because if you wait till after, it's too late.
We've reduced light pollution within the city of Wabash by swapping our street lights to LED lights that they shine straight down. They don't shine out.
And
those same lights will be placed on that roadway out there.
But we chose to live in the country because we wanted to live in the country and not have the lighting. We like to see the stars and the moon, and the lighting takes away from that. Just having it, whether it's pointing down or right in your window, that's another concern, because like bedroom windows and living room windows will receive all of that. I think you're gonna have the same issue.
That'd just be my view out my
Yeah, it'll be
window.
your view, yeah.
That's my view too.
And Mayor Long, I will definitely agree with you. The city's lights, the changes that have been made within the city are a great improvement. But there are businesses in the surrounding area that do not adhere, and it's a huge problem. Because I live out west and I can see the Chrysler easily, very easily, and I'm, numerous miles to the west.
I'm Linda Snap, and I live just a fourth of a mile away from 115 heading west. And I'm just a little bit concerned when you said that you cannot be allowed to do anything that would raise the water level of the neighbor, because they put a grassy waterway through my neighboring farmer's land, and it all ended up coming through my land and eroding it away, and I had to have a grassy waterway put in. But because of that, then the county did not make the drainage big enough, and so the water just sits in the field and keeps the crops from growing. And so if I'm if they say they can't do that, evidently the county allowed them to do it, because nobody contacted us. No one sent us a letter saying they were putting this grassy waterway through and that it would end up running all of the neighbor's water through our property. So sometimes things happen, and then after it happens, it's too late to do anything about it. So that's my concern, that, my field is a part of her field. And so that's why I'm here.
I've lived there 80 years, my life, and there's always been a water problem there. And the Helms, where the property that you guys bought for industrial, has their water, like Dave said, comes over his land, comes down through the ditch into my land. Now, the county, a few years back, did fix the drain that was broke down in the field, but they hooked into a 10-inch tile from a 15-inch tile. And it's a 100-year-old tile that goes on down to 24. And the state at one time, when we all were supposed to try and see and get that fixed, and a lot of the neighbors didn't want to pay to have that fixed with their tax increase. And so that's all broke down. The state said they would help. They were going to have a big project, which they've been working on 24. The state now has worked on 24. They said we could hook into that, and that would help eliminate all this drainage problem, but the county didn't do it. Said they don't have the money to do it. So I get all you guys' water on my land. There's 14 people that drain comes in from everywhere. One of the land, your land's gonna be, that you want, is gonna be coming on my land. But you're saying you're gonna put in some kind of drainage thing that's gonna stop that from doing that?
Yeah, but we already have the study done. It just has to make it less than what it was before, doesn't mean it's still.
Yeah, it'll still be the same amount, but it'll be less, yeah. So, that's why I'm against it, but that's part of my income, that's part of my land. I've lived there all my life, most of it. I'm 84, so I lived there 80 years. I used to wade in that water as a kid and catch tadpoles because the drain wouldn't go off. So my dad fought it, and then my husband fought it, and we finally got part of the ditch fixed, but then not the rest of it, to help eliminate the problem. But Helms's water comes on my land, and that's where you're going to be building. And who knows what's gone in there? Solar power, what? Windmills?
Is there any way that we can limit, if you do zone that, for light industrial, limit what goes in there? So that it won't affect the residents that want to live in the country and keep it that way?
I think the Chrisman brothers on down the road, where I didn't even realize that had been changed to industrial, but they owned it years ago when I was growing up, and that was all residential. They were planning on putting a housing district there. And so are they the ones that sold it to you guys for industrial? The Chrisman brothers, or?
That was owned by Helms.
What property are you talking about? If you're talking about,
On 100 South, going towards town.
if you're talking
you said
about
that
the
was all
original
bought for
industrial
the
park, I
industrial
don't
park.
know.
Now, that was all bought for the industrial park, but it used to be residential there on the other side of Helms, where they had farmland too, on the other side of their house, which what you bought. You bought the corner. You said you want to buy the corner,
It-
but on the other side, it used to be residential, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. When you bought the industrial park, is that when you bought that and it changed hands then to?
1994-ish, 95.
See, I've been there, I've lived
That's,
there.
yeah, that's
I
when it
remember
was,
when people
that was
had
when it was
other things.
purchased. And I remember, because I just got on the police department in 94, and they hit the gas line when they were using a belly scraper. And I stood out there for hours.
And at one time, I was told that Walmart maybe was going on that corner. Somebody had it plotted out that Walmart might go on that corner. John Ferrer's the one that told me that. If you looked at the city plot and all, he said Walmart was supposed to go there. And I thought, okay,
I guess, were you notified when it was, the rest of the land was,
no.
I
didn't know it
rezoned to
was ever
industrial
changed.
from residential and farm
Yeah.
when it was purchased? I don't remember getting any notices then. I appreciate the letter that was sent out this time.
I don't know, excuse me. Like the mayor said, I
And
think,
I think drainage is the main problem I'm concerned about there. And also like the lights, everything, there goes my
early 80s, it was rezoned,
country.
the whole parcel. Or when the industrial park went in, it was, the whole thing was rezoned.
I believe so.
Okay.
And what, Helms wouldn't sell it to you guys then? Is that what stopped you getting this corner part or this 5 acres then?
He wouldn't, he would not negotiate with us. He would not sell it for less than what he wanted to sell it for.
And we couldn't pay more than the average two appraisals.
Mhm.
That was back in 2010. I was on the council.
Are you gonna try to buy the Helms property, that 5 acres, that he's living there? I mean, you want that buffer zone, but I think you want his 5 acres. I know he wants to sell
He
it.
just built a new pool barn.
I think he'd sell it, he'd give the right price.
Again,
We can't,
Freshman, we can't pay more than the average two appraisals, regardless of what
You
he's
paid a
asking
pretty penny for
for.
that Helms property, I know what you paid for it. I know what it's
It's
sold for,
public record.
I know it is, I know who made profit, so.
So like the mayor said, I've been involved in some of these projects, Parkview, industrial parks with detention, retention ponds. It does help drainage. If this would go in and help your drainage, would that satisfy everybody? Because I'm sure it's going to stop the flow of water or slow down the flow of water to where it doesn't flood.
If you're asking that for the audience, no, not from me.
Okay.
My name's Jared Parrott. I don't know how I'm supposed to walk up here. I don't want to be disrupting it. I live at 3831, so I'm the last house before you hit 115. So we talk about drainage. We talk about this. I've lived here for 3 years. I don't know much about much. I'm a dumb tradesman. No furnaces, air conditioner, stuff like that. So aside from drainage, I guess I'll just tell you that 3 years ago we bought this property. It was my wife's dream. Her dad lives down the road. She grew up there, and I've remodeled several houses and sold them to reach the point where, again, public records, $300,000 to pay for a house is unreal for me, right? Like, I grew up with nothing. So I bought this house after spending most of my life buying houses, fixing them up, and trying to get my family in a good position. And my wife's got health problems, and now we got this house now. And now it's like this whole thing's gonna like steal my dream, right? It's gonna turn it into a nightmare. Like, I didn't buy a house in the country, 5 minutes from Walmart, to have somebody build a factory in my front yard. Like, that thing's gonna be literally right outside my house. And I know that I'm just one guy, you know? But,
No, we're with you.
I mean, it just, like, but it's kind of tragic. When I seen that letter, it hurt me pretty bad. I'm just like, wow, I spent my whole life trying to get here. And now it's like, my wife said, well, maybe we need to move. And I thought, well, are we gonna be able to sell our house for what we paid for at this point? If a factory's out there? Probably not, you know, so I bought a house in the country to be close to town and to kind of live that dream, so. Again, I know there's a lot of talk about water and stuff like that, but for me, that's kind of where I'm at with it, so, you know, I'm just one guy. but
Okay,
that's what I
thank you.
You have a ton of traffic on 115 the way it is. You wouldn't believe the semi-traffic on 115. There's no shoulders. You can't walk on there. So that's going to increase traffic. I like the explanation about the drainage. I feel a lot better about that because I know it would help I know it would help Joyce's property. But I still like to see some kind of buffer because that slopes, you probably go back 20, 30 acres. I mean, it starts sloping halfway through that property. If you could put a buffer further back so that the residents would feel, you know, then you could build plant some trees. But if that detention pond's right 10 feet or 20 feet from 100, I think it'd be nice to see that pushed back. You've got plenty of land there because it's sloping a lot. And then if Helms' property is there, you're gonna have to drain behind him somehow anyway. That's the peak of that property, but it drops down both ways there from Helms' property. It's like a nice drop. So you're gonna have to deal with that problem as well. You understand what I'm saying? You're gonna have water going both ways. So that's, if you went back behind Helms' property and did your drainage back behind there, it'd probably make a better buffer for all the residents as well. You're still gonna have a lot of fall there. You still get your drainage.
Till next month
That's what I'm
for
thinking
the
about.
vote to be taken.
Well, there was talk that the road, you're going to extend the road at REMC and Living Essential out to 115 there, the main road. Is what I was told at one time. And then all at once, nobody was talking about doing that and building over there where your other buildings are, you know. But I don't understand why you cut right there on that corner.
He brought up a wonderful point that by doing this, it's going to lower our property value because it won't be in the country anymore. It'll be the city. And that's not why everybody moves there. We want to be close to town, but still live in the country.
Okay.
And so resale value, we lose.
Okay,
And I feel to mention that I've lived there 60 years, you know, and I thought I'd always be in the country.
anybody else? Questions on the board? What's the board's pleasure?
Tania, this may be unorthodox. Taking all of these observations and questions and concerns into consideration, is it something that we could, and I'm asking here, I don't know, is it something we could go back and say, look, let's reevaluate this and potentially take these people's feelings into.
Yeah, you guys have a couple different options on what you can do for the rezone, which I'll let Doug explain. But as far as, and maybe it would be more helpful if there was access to the different restrictive covenants, and so they would understand the landscaping requirements and the drainage requirements, because I think it's just that maybe you don't, anything that's adjacent to residential has to be screened with trees and buffers and hills and ponds and to make it look attractive. So I think that's probably just not been really clearly stated.
And would that be, say for instance, would that be from his property all the way to Lawrence's property, or
It'd be
in that
based on the
direction?
development. So as the developer comes in, they have to provide to the city a landscaping plan to show the buffering.
And how big of trees are they bringing in?
There are requirements, but I don't know the height.
Probably
And then
not
it's,
to hide everything. Yeah, it takes a long time to grow trees.
What is the plan with regard to wed core?
At a minimum, it'll be run all the way to 115 in cul-de-sac.
The road?
We can't get access onto 115 from the state.
You say you cannot?
No.
I said if we cannot,
If you.
So it'd be a roundabout, like where you turn around and go back around.
not a roundabout, a cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac.
Sorry, not a roundabout, where you go back and you go back out the way you
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the city's pleasure is, but our goal is not to build any roads until we have a user, because we don't want to cut the property small.
Right.
Right? So the company that was here today needs a large chunk of land, so we don't want to run a road through it or utilities through it and then not be able to accommodate. And then also in the restricted covenants, there are lighting plans. There can be no lights facing residential, they have to only be facing down.
I guess the main thing I want all of you to think about is if you lived where we lived, would you want lights all around you, coming at you from a factory?
Would you want that to be?
Even my neighbor's light comes on my side of the house, across the road, and lights up my yard. So, I sit in my living room window and look out the window towards that
I want to
building.
know the, I
That's
want to
what
know
I'm
the
gonna
exact
see.
acreage.
Is that? I guess just put yourself in our places.
Yeah, I've heard a few comments, conversations up here. What is this exact acreage we're looking at? There's been discussion that this would actually all become detention or retention area pond.
So we did a measurement tool out here in the audience, and it was 30 acres, the
Okay.
portion that we
It's
rezoned.
30 acres.
So it's 232 acres total that's in this park. So 30 acres of the 232 is what the rezone request is. And from all the current plans that we are working around, those are detention ponds in that acreage around the elm property.
Yes.
Elm, yeah.
But if they're 10 or 20 feet away from the road, the building could be another 10 feet. So it's only
It'll
actually,
be farther than that.
Right now, none of our plans even have any buildings.
Well, they're not gonna build right next to a detention pond. They'll probably be parking or driveway and then build.
an extra 20 feet.
Yeah, from all the engineer designs we have right now, that 30 acres has no buildings at all. It would be north of that, so.
Overall.
Okay, I think we've covered everything that has come up.
I guess I would have one other question, and that is, if the rezoning is not approved, is the rest of that area still going to end up being developed as industrial?
Yeah, it's already industrial.
Right, it's already industrial, so it will still be developed, so
It
all,
was already built out that
Yep.
way. The utilities are already there. It's been industrial since 95.
so even if the rezoning is denied, it's not going to stop the creation of an industrial park on most of that farm ground.
I will make the motion to pass. I'll get a vote this way if I get a second.
Could you say that again, please?
I'll make a motion to pass so we can get a vote. If I get a second.
I have just one more
Okay.
question.
I'm trying to get this thing figured out here. Hang on.
Pass to get a vote, what does that mean?
I'll make a motion to pass
To
this,
approve it.
To approve it.
to
That's,
approve it.
that's what the motion is.
If I get a second, we'll have a vote to pass or not pass. And
You're not going to discuss it further amongst yourselves?
No.
Okay.
how long do we wait?
You're the chairperson, so you can say it dies for a lack of a second. At any point in time when you want to say it.
Going once. Not seeing a second, then the motion dies.
Okay. Now, We've got a question out.
Okay.
They built the new motel, what is that, a Hampton Inn or whatever? All of that property, is that all is included in the industrial part? Why are they not willing, that's not?
That's general business along State Road 50.
Okay, so that farmland that's north of that, that is not zoned to be light industrial? Or is that zoned for what, agricultural needs or what? For residential?
It's not industrial park, so.
No, it's, I can pull the zoning up real quick. and let
If
you
I
know.
recall, it's a mix of commercial, general commercial, and residential and agriculture.
General business and then R2 of closer to.
And another question I had back in 1993 or whenever, it was evidently the county that sold, no, it had to be the city that rezoned it, it wasn't the county commissioner.
That's correct.
I mean, I've lived out there for 30 years, 60 years, and no one ever contacted me to say that this was going to be rezoned. And
You
like-
probably weren't within the mapped area at
Yeah, I'm
that
just
point.
across the road from like a
'Cause-
fourth of a mile.
The notices are 300 feet within the area.
Okay,
So if you're more than 300 feet,
that's why I wasn't.
the other thing that may have happened is that in 1995, we passed our current zoning ordinance. And as a part of that zoning ordinance was the zone map. So it may have all been done as a new zoning ordinance, and notices would not have been mailed out to individual property owners because it would have been everybody in the county, basically, or not everybody in the county, but everybody in the city and around the city. But it was advertised in the newspaper and posted in 3 different places, which is what the statute requires for a zoning ordinance passage. And so the light industrial was probably done when we redid the zoning ordinance in 1995. And it was not just the map, but it was the whole zoning ordinance that was done then. And so it may have not caught everybody's attention quite like this, where it's a specific parcel that we're dealing with.
Moral to that story, be sure to read the paper.
And it's always those little fine print legal notices.
I was wondering why the industrial park doesn't go north. Isn't the gardens and the golf course that's all city? Is the garden city?
They're still.
The garden is city, and it's
It makes more sense
there's
to go
area,
north. You have better access on Highway 15. You got the
But
east
it's-
side of 15 behind Walmart. It's just like, why would
But
you
I
go
think
west?
we've-
That's what she's asking.
I
But
think,
you potentially have access to 2 state roads. From a business standpoint, it makes more sense.
Dual served on electric is a big reason.
Okay. Moving on, next order of business is with January the 1st, 2025 being a holiday. We want to discuss changing the date for the January Plan Commission meeting to January the 8th, 2025.
I make a motion that we move the meeting so we can all have a wonderful new year.
I'll second that.
Motion a second. Roll call, please.
Second.
Bill second.
Yeah.
Got one.
Okay. Bill Lawrence.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
Are they not voting on it? Or?
It died.
Died for lack of a second,
Okay, will we be
so it
notified?
won't be rezoned.
well, okay.
That's what we're coming in.
I'm going to explain what happened. He jumped into the next item before I had a chance to.
Just really wanted to get
The-
Thursday
The zoning, the rezoning was not approved. However, the rezoning was also not disapproved. It basically can be brought up again. And yes, if it's brought up again, they would have to send out notices again to everybody. But it has not been officially denied.
That was my question.
Yeah. No, that was a good question.
We have to come to every meeting after this.
Now you want me to
In
go.
case it comes
No,
back.
no, you will have to, they will have to send out the notices all over again.
I say something? Tonight is my last night on the plan commission, but to Neil, my advice would be to come with more information in regards to the drainage plans that you could share with the people to prove to them that you really are trying to help their situation and not hurt the situation.
Sharon,
So, yes,
we can't do that because we don't know how it's gonna be developed yet. The engineers have to figure that out to
I
present that. She can't bring that if we don't
I
have it.
see.
I do have the study saying that there's issues though,
Yes.
which we already know about.
Yeah.
But
We know that that corner's the low point and that's an ideal location. There's gonna be thousands of tons of dirt moved on that property
Yeah.
to get
Just
it
to
so
level it?
it's buildable.
So there
And
won't
we
be
gotta
a
put that
builder
dirt somewhere.
anywhere to block it.
And that low point may be an ideal location.
Yeah.
But that's for the engineers to decide.
What could be done,
Bring information we don't have or have, we can't make guesses.
Well, when I look at the industrial parks that we have, I think you've done a very good job of trying to make them community friendly. And,
And we'll continue to do that.
yeah, I know you will. So I don't think you're purposely trying to hurt these people. And I hope they don't feel that way either. You know, it's difficult when you get to the line where your city is growing and you want your city to grow to a certain degree and you want to be able to control that growth, which I think Mayor's done a really good job of that as well. You know, trying to develop it in a way that we still keep our small town feel and yet become a place where people want to live and work and obviously businesses are wanting to come here. And one of the things that has happened in this community over the years that I've seen in doing real estate and whatever, is that we lose a lot of our young people when they go to college and they go somewhere else. And I know that it's been talked about many times in the, excuse me, the meetings that I've attended about the development of Wabash County, that we need to retain some of those young people or we're going to die out. And how many of you have seen your churches and other organizations die out because there aren't any young people to take it over? So we have to think about that with our city as well and think about long term and getting some positions that pay enough that college people will want to stay here. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, you know, that I see that you want to develop, but you don't want to hurt people in the process. And yet when you get to that line, you have to make a decision about what's best for the long term. And it's not easy. It's a tough thing. So I'll be praying for all of
Let
you.
me ask you, how much has the population grown since we've done all the other industrial?
Pardon me?
How much has the population grown since we've done all of the other industrial?
I can't answer that question. I don't
You know,
have that number.
It's stabilized. We're not losing population.
We're predicted to
we
grow for the first
Yeah.
time since my lifetime in the
Since
80s. By
1980.
2028.
Since
Wabash
1980.
County's predicted to grow.
I didn't know if it was growing.
Well, awesome. I think that's wonderful.
It's coming.
That's
I
that's
was
wonderful. That means all the work that we've all been doing is working. So, yeah.
I know my dad was wanting, he had, I think, surveyed 3 plots along 115 at one time.
Uh-huh.
And he was told, we cannot build there because of the drainage problem and the clay in the ground and stuff like that. And so, a few years later, then I thought about on the corner there, across Catty Corner, where you guys want to build. And I was told, no, you can't build there either. So, I mean, I can't build there, but you're going to want to put a factory in there. And so,
Well, did you hear what he said about the dirt, moving the dirt and all of that? I mean, it's gonna look a whole lot different than what it does right
Yeah.
now if they do that.
I know it won't be.
And I know you don't want it changed, and yet you don't want the drainage issue either. So it's like, how do you fix one without
The city wants to work with you. We
Yeah,
want
the
to make it
city-
better
the
for
city
you
wants to
through
work
this development. So-
I understand, and I understand what you're doing and how it's trying to help Wabash, but my main point is not only on the drainage, but you're bringing the city to our country, and it's not country anymore. And that's why we live there. That's why we chose to live there. And I truly think it will devalue our property too, because it won't be country.
I would like to address Mr. Lehman. You said a little bit ago, at one time it was, the zoning was approved and yet it wasn't approved. What did you say about that? Because I remember seeing a sign that said City of Wabash boundary, and it was pretty close to 115. And then and I thought, oh, they're moving the city out. And then the sign was gone, and I thought, nope, they're not moving the city out.
This thing got knocked down.
Oh, it got knocked down, oh, okay.
But, and that's a different issue also. That, under state statute, the city can have zoning jurisdiction outside its city limits up to about 2 miles away from the city limits, if the county gives that to the city. And the county in 1966 gave us an area, it's called the jurisdictional area, that's the area where Mary lives. Outside our city limits, we have zoning control for an area that in some places is only a very short distance outside city limits, and in other places it's pretty close to the 2 mile limit. That was in 1966. The city has grown, there's been a number of annexations, and it's gotten closer and closer, so that in most places there's no longer that 2 mile jurisdiction. In 96, 97, the city decided it was going to ask the county to let us go out 2 miles from the new city limits, and the county said no. And that's when that sign may have gone up and gone down. Then in 2011, the county did allow us to expand our jurisdictional area a little bit. And so, but again, if I remember correctly, on the northeast side of the city limits, we're pretty close to our jurisdictional limits. We don't have 2 miles. If you go to the southwest side, we've got 2 miles that's almost all farmland outside the city limits that we've got jurisdiction over. So it varies. But that's one issue. What I was talking about before was the fact that in 95, we passed a brand new zoning ordinance. Our prior zoning ordinance had been passed in 1970. The brand new zoning ordinance in 1995 included a brand new zone map. And that's why you probably didn't get any notices, because when you do a whole new zoning ordinance, you don't send notices to everybody. You publish it in the newspaper and post it in 3 public places, usually up at the courthouse, at City Hall, and one other place. And so that's probably how this other part got rezoned light industrial without you ever getting a specific notice. When we rezone a specific parcel, 1 parcel or 2 or 3 parcels, then we have to give notice to people who own property within 300 feet of that parcel. But when we do a whole new zoning ordinance, we don't have to give that kind of notice.
Quick question. So when we had that controversy in 16, we all pay a drainage tax. And I think mine's $180 a year. And it's based on how much of your land funnels into that
Right.
basin. So if they put in this protection and put in retention ponds, that'll affect our drain? Would that affect our tax? Our taxes go down? Because we're all paying taxes. And when we had that controversy, we had $40,000 in our fund. And we went to the county and said, where's the money? And, well, it's not there. We'll use this money for other projects, even though it was designated for our drainage. It's really not very fair to us. So I just said, no, I didn't think about that. Would that save us taxes maybe if we're not getting the same drain?
The tax base is going to grow as
And-
As industry comes.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, but Dave's question really is, I think what you're talking about is not called a drainage tax, it's called a ditch assessment. Yeah, but you're right, it's the same thing, but it's called a ditch assessment. And I would anticipate, but I don't know, because that's the drainage board for the county that controls all that. But I would anticipate that if the city goes in and recontours the land, puts in storm drains and retention ponds and all of that, and significantly reduces surface water, storm water from leaving the property, except under a very controlled rate, I would expect, and certainly you ought to claim with the county, that the ditch assessment should either go away or be significantly reduced.
But there's probably 100 acres that affects that drain. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it. It slopes from the
Yeah.
west back all the way down to 100. Based on what Sharon said, first of all, Mayor Scott does a great job. He's a great mayor.
Yes.
I have no problems about that stuff. But, yes, we need industry, but as industry grows, we need housing.
Well, we're working on that
We
too.
need
That's another
housing.
subject that we're working
And
on.
not $400,000 or $500,000
The-
homes at the garden. We need $250,000 homes.
Right.
I can't build a house for two.
I know, because it's about 200 square foot now.
Yeah.
Trump's
We had
gonna
another,
Trump's gonna fix that, right?
we had another builder in today.
Good. Well,
I-
that makes me happy, because I'm for progress. Yeah.
Yes, Linda.
So you said there was, property available on the southwest part of the town, the city?
No, that's our zoning boundary.
That's our zoning boundary. Yeah.
So why are they not looking into that for an industrial park? Because that would not affect a lot of homes. I mean,
You don't
we a
have
lot of
state, you don't
people
have
living-
state.
First off, yes.
You don't have state highway access.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
or a highway
Anywhere
in a
close.
reasonable distance. I mean, you got
Nor-
State Route 13, but
That's 3 miles.
Nor do we know,
Going by.
nor do we know if anybody wants to sell to us either. The thing of it is, the people who bought the property from Helms, they knew who was going to be interested in buying that. They knew that eventually the city was going to buy it. And so they bought it with the idea that they're going to sell it to the city. You got to find somebody that's willing to sell to the city, because the city is not going to go out and condemn their property and take it by force. Although we've got the authority to do that, that's not been the policy of the last 2 administrations. Yeah.
Helms called me in 2020 during COVID, and asked if the city would be interested. I didn't need it then. I still had 100 and some acres at the business park. Well, thanks to Ford Meter Box's expansion,
So
all of a
it's
sudden
their
I was out of large parcels of industrial land, and we were getting leads left and right to locate business here. And I have to have the land available if we want to attract those businesses and jobs here. And right along with that, that's why we're working so hard on housing. Trying to get new houses built, because we anticipate business potentially coming here from the battery plant in Copenhagen also. Tier 2 suppliers and people that supply that plant are looking for locations to build. We just broke ground. They're moving dirt right now for 2 buildings out by the drive-in.
So a battery plant doesn't cause any pollution?
That's Howard County.
That's that's
No, you said they were coming. looking at-
no.
Suppliers.
Work, yes,
That would
yes.
supply
And workers.
and workers.
What's that cost? My sister lives in Kokomo, and she went to a hearing and she said they did not approve the battery people.
This would be the supplier for their.
Well,
natural gas.
they approved them.
Because the plant's almost
I mean, the
done.
factory's built.
Yeah.
It was approved.
Well, maybe she could have been mistaken. She's not the smartest.
And it could have, it could have been a specific supplier that wanted to build near them. that didn't get approved. I would like to suggest that the covenants be looked at seriously and maybe circulated among the neighbors to show what restrictions would be there in the industrial park that would address some of the issues that they've raised. There's no question that once the industrial park is built out, you're not going to be, quote, in the country anymore. And that part, I don't know that the city can really do much about it at this point. They've got that land for industrial use. And like I said, even if the rezoning's not approved, the rest of that area can still be developed as industrial. And you're right.
Is there not a contingent liability to the city for the devaluation of the surrounding area? None? Really?
No.
That's interesting.
I think you're making an assumption that the property around it's gonna devalue.
I know ours is. I'm no different than these folks. I mean, it's not water. We're on the west side of 115. But you talk about windmills or solar panels or lights or semis or whatever. Yeah, we'll be selling.
You can get a lot more, even just to rent a home in the country than you can in town because of its location.
Sure.
I can't believe we don't have rights.
Well, all
We'll
night
find out.
long, some nights go
We'll find
down
out.
115, turn right. They're probably going to Living Essentials, what I figure they're doing. I sit in my living room and I see them go by constantly. So that's even gonna be worse when they build down there on 150.
Potential.
100. So-
We could always vacate Beecham Drive if we need that land for a factory. And then your only access points are the highways.
I don't understand what you mean by vacate Beecham Drive.
Take it out.
Is that
So
the
there's
one-
no
is that the
access to
driveway?
100 South.
Oh, that one.
So when you go to pay your RMC bill, you'll have to go
Okay.
around.
We do 100 South all the way.
That's for sure where you
You
go.
can talk to the county about that.
You know that hill going back into town, there's been several accidents there. You can semi there or a truck. It's a dangerous location.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Sharon had mentioned that this is her last meeting with the Planning Commission. 33% of the Planning Commission's not going to be on the Planning Commission after this meeting. I'm done with my term as well. I was appointed by Mayor Copeland in his very early time of being a mayor, so I've been on this board for a long time. There are no term limits or anything. I've really enjoyed it. Like tonight, there's often times where people are opposed to what is being brought. Really, the charge of the Planning Commission, though, is, does this fit the comprehensive plan of the city? And the comprehensive plan of the city is to encourage growth with industry as well as housing. Yet also, the charge is not to affect the surrounding area around it. That's what makes this one kind of a difficult one when we don't know exactly what is going to go into this area. I always try to go out and drive everything before the meetings take place. You gotta admit, I drove over by Went today and looked at that subdivided property, which was pretty an easy thing to do anyway. I didn't go out and drive this one because I'm so familiar with it. When I worked in Warsaw, which many people would drive from Wabash to Warsaw because there's not the industry here. But when I worked in Warsaw, just coming in on a day of a heavy rain, I'd see that rain, I'd see the runoff. And it crossed Highway 15 2 or 3 times going through the properties that you're speaking of, eventually over near Walmart. And when they put in their detention pond there, that really changed a lot of the runoff that was coming on into the town, it seems like. There were a lot of concerns with the runoff from the Walmart, and actually the work they did improved the entire area and that. Basically, to the planning commission though, something I always wanted to see us do and never really did it, is to encourage good signage and that sort of thing. I think I brought it up once about 10 or 12 years ago, and I mentioned that we needed to look at emerging technologies and consider that with the city plan. At that time, I led with a complaint with the new LED lighting that was going in out at the Big R store at that time. And I said, we need to do something to keep from having this flash all through town like this. It's probably a bad example to bring up because pretty much everybody on the board pounced on me on that. But if we would have we need to look at technologies that are coming in and things that are changing. I'd like to see the signage more like Zionsville, where nothing is higher than the building, natural materials. And I just made an observation the other day driving in on Manchester Avenue past the new plant that we have out there, the police department. All those, both businesses and industry, all the way along there, have got decent signage. It isn't until you get to Sable Out Liquor Store that you see a big old beacon sticking up there. That's something I hope to see people carry on. I'm stepping off the board because I've been on it for so long. And I made the decision back in June to find out when my term expired and talk to Karen about it and then the mayor. So anyway, when you guys come back here for this again, you're gonna see a lot of different people on the board. That was all before the solar and the wind ordinance and all that came up. We actually tabled all that because the board composition is going to change so much. Until next year.
Thank you for your service.
Well,
Carl and Sharon, I want to thank you guys for your service on the planning commission,
well, thanks.
as well as Matt.
Thank you. I didn't editorialize that for
Well, that was my plan anyway. Where's their plaque? Where's the case? That's Karen's job.
Yeah.
We actually got them each a big LED sign.
Flashing.
On a pedestal.
Yes.
Outside your house.
Is there anything else to come before the board tonight? We're adjourned.
See you guys New Year's Day.
Bring some coffee, your cup.
We got the first and the second, but we didn't see the roll.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Did you vote on it?
Just say aye.
So we're coming on the 8th, right? Aye.
Unless you want to come on New Year's Day,
Steroids.
I mean, that's your option.
I'm serious, I'm just gonna shake.
Hi, Dave, how are you?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Carl, sorry to see you go off.
Yeah, I kept waiting on